So we don't have a lady, but gentlemen, we have Mr. Paul Odera today presenting to us. Of course, as you can see on his first slide, coping with the pressure in high performance setup. He's the national 15s, Kenya Rugby 15s coach. And he would like to at least share some of his experiences as a national coach. So without taking much more time, Mr. Paul, please welcome and continue with your presentation. Thank you.
Ogola, thank you very much. Gentlemen, good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to join fellow coaches in different disciplines, because that is how we grow. And in high performance environments and in coaching, I think it's something that's really encouraged to share ideas and see what other disciplines do and how they prepare either their athlete or their athletes, whether it's a team sport or individual sport, to perform at the highest level. So I'm Paul Odera, and when Ogola asked me to come in and share some ideas, remember I'm just sharing ideas and my experience and what I've done in different places. And it would be great if all of you are able to learn something or borrow something or even contribute something to the discussion. So the topic I picked on was coping with pressure in a high performance team. Now, all of you have coached at whatever level experience some form of pressure. But of course, the higher you go up, when you go from coaching young children in a community or at an under-9 game into an under-11 game, into senior sport, right up to club level and into the national teams, the pressure gets higher and higher. So I thought I'd just share a few ideas with you. These three gentlemen here who are on the screen, I like to acknowledge and thank them, because a lot of the ideas I got were when I was in the World Rugby High Performance Academy. The gentleman on the right with the Bank of Ireland shirt is Stuart Lancaster. He was head coach of England, and he was the main presenter of the program. If you remember, England were hosting the World Cup in that year, and he became the first ever rugby home hosting side not to make it past the group stage. So, you know, he shared quite a bit on that experience and the pressure that was there, and also dealing with the failure. The gentleman on the left in the red shirt is Scott Wisemantle. He was one of the lecturers there. He was the assistant coach of England, and up until recently, he was the Australian assistant coach. And then the gentleman at the bottom is Dave Huddersfield. Dave Huddersfield does a lot with mental strength, mental skills, and development of players. So he works with rugby, baseball, he's worked with athletics, he's worked with football, and these are my lecturers. So I think it was important that I acknowledge them. So the first thing, when as a coach, it's always important to discover who you are, what values do you stand for, and then what pillars do you have around you that keep you strong. Forget the technical bits that you read, the drills that you know. When you're working in a high performance environment, or for any environment for that matter, you will come under a lot of pressure. Pressure from players, pressure from fans, pressure from media, pressure from the owner, or pressure from the board. And it's always important that you have these three check. Now, of course, it's an age-old question. Do you ever really know who we are? But it's always important to understand what pushes your buttons, what annoys you, what makes you happy, what makes you comfortable, and what values do you stand for? You know, will you do anything to win? Would you rather play well and lose? But remember, in high-performance environment, losing at times can cost you your job very easily. And then what keeps you strong? What pillars have you built around your life outside the game as a head coach that keep you strong? My background, I did a degree in international business administration. I then did a further degree in education. These are some children. The top left is when I was leaving. I'd been in this school called Kenton College for 13 years. And I was leaving to go become head of geography at another prep school. At the bottom here, my form. It was my last form. And they said we have to take a selfie before I leave. Bottom right is the under-9 cricket team that I coached. We won the international schools under-9 championship with this team here, and I also do coaching cricket. So education is my main source of income, if you call it that, because I think those who are well versed with Kenyan sports know that as a regular income, sometimes it's quite difficult, and it's not available for many, in fact, if none. So teaching is my main career. I'm now the deputy headmaster at a prep school called Pembroke House in the Rift Valley in Gilgit. So that is my background there. I started, I played rugby from the age of 11. St. Mary's School. This is 1995 on the left. We won everything that was there to be won in schoolboy rugby in Kenya. The teammates here on my right are the ones who got selected for the Kenya schools team. That shield at the top is the one I was given as the captain of the Kenya schools team when I was playing Uganda in Kampala. So handling pressure with me started quite early in my sporting life. Then from there I went on to play for the Kenya Sevens. That photo on the right is when we were at the Middlesex Sevens in England in 1998. I then went on to captain the Kenya Sevens team in 2001. That's a picture on the left there. And at the bottom is my childhood club, Kenya Harlequins. I joined the club at the age of 11, and then I was made club captain in 2004. I then went on to coaching quite early, I think. On the left, I guess from my head, you can tell we come from an Arab country. This was when we just come from Morocco. I was coaching the Kenya under 18 side at that time. This is in 2006. So I was a very young coach. I was pushed very quickly into coaching at the national team. The year before, I then went back to coach my former school and went to the Dubai Sevens. That bit there is when I coached Strathmore University. We became university champions, and I took it's a university club, so it plays in the top league as well. When I took over, they were second last, and we went on to finish third that year in the university championship and almost won the league. In 2000, so after 2006, I spent about 9 years outside the national setup. In 2015, I applied to be the under-19 coach, which I successfully got. So this is the team that I took to Zimbabwe for the tournament. We found life quite tough when we were in Zim, especially how far Zimbabwe and Namibia were in terms of their rugby. This is my coaching staff. We had to travel with this big group of players and only 2 members of staff, the constraints. 4 years later, we became African champions and went to the Junior World Trophy. It was in Brazil, as you can see from that big statue of Christ the Redeemer behind us. That's the under trophy badge. It was a massive feat for us because when I applied for the job in 2015, I was given 3 years to beat Namibia, and I was given a grace period of 1 more year, and we managed to achieve that feat in 2019. And then that same year, I then got promoted to coach the national team. So from 2019 up to 2022, I was the head coach of the Kenya Simbas, which is our national team. So just a brief background on my experience in dealing with high pressure environment. The first thing that I'd like to share with you is, as an individual, it's important to build resilience and a purpose. A lot of the picture I've posted with myself is I've always created that it is important to enjoy yourself, especially when you're in a high performance environment. So how do you build your resilience? And everyone has their different ways. And how do you build a larger purpose in life? What I found that has worked well, and you see at the bottom there, is your mental fitness and your spiritual fitness. One of the things I did is I got a spiritual fitness coach, if there's anything to go by. Now, all of us have different ways of spirituality. Some decide, yoga works and meditation. Others, going to a forest or climbing a mountain is something very spiritual. And each of us have the different spiritual bits. Mine is Catholicism, and to me, it's been a very critical part of building my resilience and my purpose. And I went and got a priest, and we agreed on, and we mapped out a diary, and we did a full spiritual fitness program. What I have to do every day, what I have to do every week, what I have to do every month, what I have to do every quarter, half yearly, and then every year. And we touch base at least once a month to get some coaching. Because I had decided to adopt the same process I would adopt with how I'd coach. Had you got this one? Okay. The second bit I just wanted to share with all of you coaches: follow your passion. Now, as a coach, I've put 3 things there. So when you're coaching, is your passion leadership? Is your passion management? Or is your passion coaching? So I've put for you three of the teams that I coached. When I was at Strathmore University between 2011 and 2012, that was 3 to 4 days a week. We trained 6 to 7 months in a season. A lot of contact time with me and the players. There was a clear organizational structure. There was hierarchy, and roles were clearly defined within the organization. In 2015, when I took over the Kenya Under-20 side, Chifu side, it's age grade teams are always very difficult because there's always a transition. And you're coaching players for maybe a year or maybe 2 years, and then they move on. Then you have a next batch of players. The Kenya Under-20 team only had 3 to 4 matches that year. 4 to 6 weeks together, if we're lucky, but many of you are aware that a lot of the times, many of our federations on the African continent and in Kenya sometimes just don't have the finances to be able to support long-term programs. So it was around training camps. The environment there, we were under the radar pretty much. We were considered just a minor team in terms of the elite teams of Kenya Rugby, until we qualified for the Junior World Trophy 2019. Sorry, that's a mistake. In 2019, I inherited a very fragmented club, school, country relationship. So really no clear connection between the pathway on how players work through from those little ones I was working with at under 13 all the way into the national team. No money, so fundraising was a very big component, key part of it. When I got promoted to the Kenya Simbas in 2019, between 2019 and 2022, the pressure went up, 10 levels. If I was lucky, I'd get 4 weeks with the team. And this was in training camps. 3 to 4 matches a year, Uganda, a Zimbabwe game, maybe a game against Zambia. And every World Cup cycle, there'd be at least another 4 matches. So the qualification is 2 years out. Is it a year? No, it's a year out of the World Cup. So that's where found myself. The board, it was dysfunctional in terms of the board wanted to manage everything to do with the game. So instead of driving policy and giving direction, they wanted to select players, want to select the coach, they want to determine who the physio is going to be, they want to determine which club the conditioning coaches come from. No connection at all when I took over in 2019 between the under-20 side and the senior side. So you found hundreds of players coming through the under-20s, but they'd have no clear pathway on how to progress. And also that was a challenge because it was a symptomatic of perhaps the dysfunctionality of the system and the hierarchy. Very fragmented club-country relationship where you find people care more about their club than their country. So you'd find that all people are interested in is, do I have 6 people of my club in the national team? Whether the team wins or loses is immaterial. What we want is that our club has more players than all the other clubs. So that came with its pressure as well. Then fundraising, commercial partners were leaving. I found a team where the commercial partners were exiting. We lost SportPesa, we lost Safaricom. If you remember the fiasco when the Kenya Sevens players went and what did they do? They blocked out the name of the sponsor. If some of you remember that, that had a big effect on the Kenya Simbas because there was no sponsor willing to put any money into the team because they were not sure that the investment would be guaranteed. So we found a lot of commercial partners working. Would any of you be willing to hazard a guess? If you look at leadership, management, and coaching, which one do you think was needed more for which area? If anyone would be willing to guess. Simbas, under 20, coaching. Okay, maybe people are still warming up for goal.
You are right.
Right, I'll move on. There's no problem. So again, that was the structure that I found that I had to deal with through the different areas. The club coaching at Stratham University needed a lot more coaching. So it was coaching and then a level of management and then leadership. And I remember my background is a development background because I've coached right through the system. I've coached from under 9, under 11, under 16, under 18, under 20, and then a national. So really that's how I'm focused. So the most fun that I actually had was with Strathmore University and the under 20 side, looking at the background, because there's more coaching needed there. With the Simbas, I found myself now playing a lot more of a political role, where there was a lot more leadership needed, then management, and then coaching. So it was important that I influence the coaching in the club game, because then that is how I'd be able to get players who are of a certain level of competence or in the style that I want the team to play. But remember, with a fragmented club-country relationship, that was not easy. To cope with pressure, I'd suggest to you as coaches, build a team that can thrive under pressure. You want to build a team that under pressure is unmessable with. And this is some of the building blocks that I've taken on. First, build your culture. Then build a strong identity. And then you've got to get a higher purpose for which you're driving the team. At the Simbas we want to transform Kenya through rugby. Then where are your behaviors? Are those players only there to get their match allowance? Are they only there to get their salary at the end of the month? Are they only there to get whatever money it is? So whether you're coaching a club team you go and recruit and buy players, and then have the players lead the leadership. Very, very difficult thing for a coach, because we're all control freaks as coaches. That's what makes good coaches, but you want to control everything. Even look at the Premier League. Pep Guardiola is screaming on the touchline half the time. But what's important is when the players are leading the leadership, because when that whistle goes, there's not much you're going to do. Or when that hooter goes, or if it's your athlete who's on the track, once they get on the track and they start running, there's nothing much you're going to do as a coach. So if they're leading the leadership, then you find that that works better. So this is what I created, and we created with the Simbas team. We created a mission. Our mission was to transform Kenya through rugby. Our vision was to qualify for the World Cup in France in 2023, which was unsuccessful. So that was the vision. And then this was our identity. And I think our German counterpart commented at the beginning about the lion. So this was our identity. The lion, we said, will give us leadership, resilience, and strength. The shield, we went to our Kenya coat of arms. Brotherhood, protection, accountability. Then we said the spear is the pinnacle of who we are. We are warriors, and we represent 53 million strong. So I really wanted the players and the coaches and everybody in the organization to start owning the Kenya Simbas as a national team. And it's important that this is owned through the organization, from the secretary to the chairman of the union. If you watch a documentary where Roberto Martinez was talking when he first got the job in Belgium, he addressed the Belgian Football Federation, said that he must then drive the culture right through the organization. But that again is in Western European countries who have a different culture. I then got a way of behaving, values, protection, respect, leadership, perseverance, hard work. And then this became the center of how we do everything. Our behavior, which was connected to our values, which is connected to our identity, which is connected to our mission. We work as a team, protect and respect. We put the team ahead of ourselves. We support. We hold each other accountable with empathy. Remember, if you've missed a tackle or if you let in a goal, if a try was let in, there was nothing of pointing a finger at your teammate. What was important is that you take accountability for what you've done, and it's with empathy. No, that's a spelling mistake. We are honest. Honest. There should be a T there. We fight for every inch. We embody perseverance. And the last bit, we are all leaders. Remember, in a national team, you'll find Collins Injera. So we had Collins Injera, superstar, world superstar, on his last year or two. Then you had players I brought in from the under 19s and under 20s. But each player needed to see that they take leadership. So some of the things we do when we had team meetings, if it was the backline or the centers to make a presentation, we got some of the youngest players. So the likes of Collins Injera, their work was to support that player in terms of content, let him do the preps, and then let him come in front of the group and present and speak. And that way, the group also valued that youngster. So that was something really created that was very strong. And then there's, I was just playing it for a goal. I don't know if it's going to play here. We then had, I even went a step further and said, we need a song. We even got a song to be composed because we wanted the country, wanted the players, we wanted everyone to have a very strong sense of togetherness and cohesion. This song has never been released because we got into a disagreement with the composer. But just have a listen. Those who are not Kiswahili speakers, it's okay. yeah, so that was so that song was composed through the efforts of everyone. It had to have some English because that's our official language. Kiswahili, a majority of Kenyan people speaking Kiswahili. So the players owned that song. So even all the all the mission statement being translated to Kiswahili was all part of the players. This is what we did during COVID. Because remember, during COVID, we were not able to get to the pitch. So we managed to get that. A strong part of helping you to cope with pressure is family. That's my wife and I. We've been married 9 years. Now, of course, marriage is, for some people it's working, some it's not working, some it's collapsed, some maybe it's only. But I advocate that you get a partner or somebody who supports you away from the game. And my wife has been a fantastic source of support and always there. She doesn't watch too much of rugby, but she's always very clear that her first priority is my happiness, and spending time with my wife away from the pressure of having played the game or is always good. And my routine is before every match, big match, I'd call her, we have a conversation, and after the game again, we have a conversation. And sometimes we talk about, if the gas needs to be bought or the gas has run out in the cylinder and needs to be replaced. Because a lot of those things take away the pressure. Now, some other family members, these are my siblings. We are quite a large family. We're 7 of us. Asking how things are going. There's one sibling, one of my sisters, who monitors every press comment, every radio interview, and is always there to give me whatever the gossip the tabloids are saying. But that's been my family, and it's been like this since I started playing in school, and right through until last year, November, when I left the Kenya job. On the right is my extended family. I think most Africans will understand that we do have a large group, and my aunties, my grandmothers, and my cousins and second cousins form a big part of the fabric. So I'd recommend that coping with pressure at times is important. Build these blocks, like I said at the beginning there, because these are the blocks that help you cope with whatever is coming at you in an elite environment. Share the load. Now, it's very important that you do try and share the load, because when I got into the national team, the Kenya Simba, between coaching, leadership, and management, and communication with the board, communication with stakeholders like the clubs, communication with government, I found that around the leadership section of being a national coach, that's a lot of what I needed to do. These two gentlemen here are fantastic human beings, and the gentleman on the right, as you can see, there's a lot of tension. This is before we played Algeria in France in the semi-finals of the World Cup qualifiers in Marseille last year. Thomas Odundo is a gentleman on the right, one of the best rugby brains I think we have in the country. And Thomas Odundo was at that time the acting CEO, but he was really important because he had coached Kenya as well. So I always insisted on taking him along with me because he could coach. And in where you have, so it was important that he's also dealing with matters of finance and admin as the acting CEO, but he was also there to offer a technical eye as well on things. So as a head coach, if you're able to have a very good relationship with the CEO or the director of rugby, because he was both acting CEO and director of rugby. And that helped to sometimes buffer against some of the pressure. The gentleman on the left there, the Mzungu fellow, is Peter Druitt, an outstanding man. Peter Druitt was head coach of Exeter Chiefs. Exeter Chiefs at some point were European champions of rugby in Europe, in England. He was head of high performance in Georgia, head of high performance in Hong Kong. Now he was brought in basically by World Rugby to try and act as a buffer between myself and the board. Because if some of you remember, I think in 2021, there was a massive breakdown in communication between myself and the board of the Kenya Rugby Union, which ended up in court, which didn't go well. So he was sent to take the pressure, and he did that really well. But he's also a brilliant rugby brain and a fantastic man as well. So share this load. You know, sometimes as a head coach in a high performance team, do look at trying to share some of the load so that it takes pressure off you, so that you can do other things. So these two gentlemen managed to at least take some of the leadership and some of the management load off me, so that I could focus on the coaching. So look for those resources, whether it's at your club, whether you're coaching at the elite level, the national team, whether you're coaching an athlete. Sometimes look at how you can share some of that workload in an elite environment, because it does go a long way. This group of men are also brilliant. So this was my team. This is when we were in Brazil in the under-20s, and I moved with all these gentlemen except one. This is Dr. Ondiege Ogola. Maybe you know him from NOC.
I do.
So yeah, Dr. Ondiege, a brilliant man, very good rugby brain, very passionate about the things he does. So I gave Dr. Ondiege the position of Chief Medical Officer. We didn't have one at that time. In fact, he had been relegated to just operating like a physio. But, you know, he runs everything. He runs anti-doping. He runs lifestyle choices. You know, he also doubles up as our psychiatrist at some point, even though that's not his main area. Because remember, players at times on the physio bed do say things that they may not tell the head coach. This is Steve Mancone, who again we moved with from the under-20s. He's a physio and he's our head physiotherapist. This is Michael Wino. Michael Wino I moved with as well, our strength and conditioning coach. He's a sports coach at Braeburn International School. On the left here is Jimmy Munene. Jimmy Munene is the team manager. Jimmy we also moved with from the under-20s. He's a lawyer by profession. This is Billy Odengo. Billy is the analyst. Again, Billy was a coach, and then we needed an analyst, and I asked him, Billy, you know, is this something you'd like to take on? And he said, yes, why not? If you get someone who's a coach who then decides to do analysis, they are worth gold, because they are thinking, they are doing the analysis as a coach. If you get an analyst who's just an analyst and they're not looking at the game, chances are often that you'll find a clash between the coach and the analyst. This is Michael. Michael is an assistant, is the forwards coach. But just not only that, he's a formidable human being, really solid man. He's my co-deputy. So I'm a deputy headmaster in charge of discipline and pastoral and welfare. He's the deputy headmaster at the same school in charge of logistics and administration. And then this is Ken Andola, who was our backs coach, and he didn't transition with us into the Simba. So again, these gentlemen here, when we sit in the war room, each of them were able to state their case, and they would challenge me. They would challenge me on selection. I know head coaches do not like that at all, but sometimes it's not a bad thing, because when they all had ownership and leadership, and remember, I had to stick true to the culture and the mission that we built, but it allowed me to cope with the pressure of dealing with multiple responsibilities that come with coaching at the highest level. Please plan. If you want to deal with the pressure of coaching in a high performance team, planning is paramount. This is, I've just given you a section of this is how we'd plan right through the year. Whether the Kenya Rugby Union had money or not was immaterial. We'd sit down with these gentlemen you've seen. Everyone would put in their bid and would chat from December all the way until the next December. And then you see, right, this is what we plan to do in phase one, in our macro cycle. This is what we plan to do in our micro cycle. This is what we're going to look at. This is the fixture that's been put. Like, for example, this plan here didn't work at all because when it came to April for us to travel to South Africa, there was no money. So that didn't happen. But it didn't stop us because then, you see, it allowed us to keep on looking at how to manage things. And even then, sometimes you may have no money, but you may find someone who's got the finances and you tell them, look, in our plan, in April, we decided we wanted to do some strength in anaerobic work. Are you able to give us a gym for free, or are you able to give us some conditioning work? So that's what helps. Please plan. Without planning, you'll find yourself frustrated. Once you're frustrated, you're going to find that coping with pressure will become that much harder. So finally, I wanted to leave you with a few things. When you're in a high performance environment, it's always a lot of pressure. How do you build for the future? How do you win in the present? And how do you stay true to your values? That is the reality. Winning is what high performance environments are about. How many coaches do you see sacked in the English Premier League? How many coaches have you seen sacked in Kenya with Harambee Stars? How many coaches have you seen sacked with Kenya Sevens? How many coaches have you seen sacked with Kenya Simbas as well? When the national teams, whether it's volleyball, because a high performance environment does demand winning. But what I'd like to share with you is you've got to have value, and you've got to stay true to those values, because if you don't stay true to those values, you will find that you do not know who you are, and matters are unraveling very quickly. One of the biggest challenges I found at the Kenya Rugby Union is you found that a board member has been allocated the docket of the national team, but they have no clue about high performance. So they don't understand it. And when you're trying to explain to them that, look, perhaps we need to do things in a certain way. Let me give you an example. When I took over in 2019, I said we need to start building for the next World Cup. I was told, no. We every time we play Uganda, we must beat Uganda. And I said, I understand that winning is fine, but playing Uganda it's not the World Cup qualifier. The World Cup qualifier is in 2022. Why don't we try and build? It was a breakdown in communication. I stood my ground. Of course, that led to future conflict. But in September of that year, we played Zimbabwe in Nakuru. I think there's a game tomorrow as well. Zimbabwe playing Nakuru. Zimbabwe playing Kenya in Nakuru. My front row was 21 years old on average. The second row pairing, I think, were 23 or 24. We had our wingers were 19 years old at that time and 20, and we beat Zimbabwe 34 points to 19, looking into the future. And had we lost that game, I would have been sacked. When I was coaching the under-20, the scores were 12-10. Tunisia were about to score. I was one try or no, one tackle or one penalty away from being sacked because we're going to get relegated. But we stuck to our guns and we said, since there were a lack of resources within the national body, we said every year, half the team would be 18 and under. Because you see, it would mean that at least over the next 2 years, we'd have at least half of the players staying on, because we know there are no structures from schoolboy rugby into the under-19s, into the under-20s. Well, there is rugby, but there's no pathway in terms of how we select representative teams here in Kenya. And again, I stuck to my values. I was lucky I won in the present, and I was building for the future. So that is one of the things that I recommend you do. If you meet a board or an ownership or a club or an organization, we have to win. That's a very difficult place to be in a high performance environment. Because I'm going to ask you, coaches, could you tell me of one coach in the world, whether they're coaching La Liga, Serie A, whether they're coaching the Gallagher Premiership, Super Rugby, whether they're coaching the NBA, whether it's our athletics coaches here. Tell me of one coach at the elite level who has not lost a game or who has not lost a race. Is there any? No. Every coach, Alex Ferguson, Graham Henry, Pep Guardiola, the NBA coaches, Stephen Kerr now, who's with the Golden State Warriors, even up to Red Bull and even Lewis Hamilton and in Formula One. Even our Eliud Kipchoge has lost a race recently, who's the fastest man in the marathon ever, the most successful marathoner ever. So even his coach has had to taste defeat at some point. So if you find people who are telling you that you must win all the time, it's not possible, because every coach at the level of high performance has lost a game. So what's always important is that I would recommend this is what you tell, or this is what you stick to when you're coaching in high performance environments, that you're building for the future. Remember, my background is a development background. And as a teacher, as an educator, we always have that at the back of our mind. And it's also no surprise that some teachers have made some of the best coaches in the game of rugby. Jake White, who won the World Cup with South Africa, was a teacher. Clive Woodward, who won the World Cup with England, was also a teacher. In fact, on his staff, I think every member of staff, when they won the World Cup in 2003, had a teaching background. Stuart Lancaster, also we just spoken about, has a teaching background. Eddie Jones, who's now coaching Australia and coach of England and coach Japan, he himself was a teacher before he got into coaching. So it's, even if you don't have a teaching background, always have a developmental part to how you coach, where you're building things, because that's the legacy. I am so proud when I go and watch the national team tomorrow that I'm going to find boys who I started coaching when they were 16 or 17, and now they're 25, but they're playing in the national team. Had we not stayed patient with those boys, had we not, even when we're losing, even when things are going bad, I think last year Portugal beat us 78 points to I think 12. You know, we're playing with a 19-year-old number 8. We're playing with a 22-year-old front row. But had we not done that, where those boys are broken in, then it would not be what we're going to see tomorrow. So those are some of the things I'm very proud of in terms of building that legacy. Winning is important, yes. Please enjoy it. You see a lot of the pictures they show you. I found a lot of pictures where I'm smiling and laughing and enjoying myself. I have done that right through. Now, it's not always like that. It's not always a bed of roses, but I've made sure that I have as much fun as possible. Because if you're not having fun in whatever it is you're doing, you're not going to go very far. And what happens is, if you're not enjoying yourself, you're going to take that back home to your family, to your wife, to your siblings, to your children, if you've got children, and you start affecting your life at home. And stay true to your values. Find out who you are, find out the things you value, and do not waver. When Pep Guardiola left Bayern Munich, he told them, these are my values, this is what I stick to. And they said, no, sorry, Bayern Munich, I have these different bits that we look at. And they parted ways. It was as simple as that. Ethos wasn't working. Germans being Germans, the way they do their things, they plan 15, 20, 30 years ahead, and they build structures and they build foundations. And, I was told that the organization is bigger than you. Look at Arteta with Arsenal. They were almost being relegated, but the board stuck with it. And you remember what he said when he got the job. The buy-in must be of my ethos and my culture and philosophy right through the organization. And I think we'll give the Arsenal board credit that they stuck with him, and look how far they've gone. The last point that I want to share around coping with pressure. Do they 100% want you wherever it is you're going? And do you 100% want them? Have you gone and had maybe with one or two board members and they told you, don't worry, we're going to push for you. And then 3 or 4 board members are just looking and saying, who are you? Go to Ataona. You see, or have the board just said, look, or whatever the person we're looking for, we've seen your track record over the years, and we cannot be more glad to have someone of your caliber or someone like you who's going to be here with us to support our organization. And then, do you want to go there? Is the other question. Are you going there just because it's going to put food on the table? What's the culture in that place? If you find a place who they're like, we win, we don't care. If you're going to remove someone's eye, if you're going to kick someone, we don't want to know. We are there. Do we need to bribe a referee? Do you need to kick someone out? What do we need to do? If you go into a culture like that and then that's not you, chances are that you're not going to last in that high performance environment. If you go that yours is positive reinforcement, that softly, people and we tell people to their faces, you boost their parents, abuse their mothers or fathers, and that's how things work here. And then suddenly you are a very softly person who prefers to do things quietly in the background. Immediately, that's also going to be a challenge. So those are things to find out before you go to any organization and you have to work there. Gentlemen, that's it from me. I don't know if you've enjoyed it, if you heard something that resonates, that is familiar, but it was just to share a few of my thoughts with all of you for these few minutes. Oi, are there questions on chat? Oh, okay. No, it's nothing. Ogola Asante.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you so much for your very, very rich experience in terms of coaching under pressure. At least you've given us some highlights that believe are very quite important. And probably before maybe I open the floor for any discussions, could you just repeat what you said on how you get your spiritual fitness?
So what I did around my spiritual fitness was I went and sought out a member of the clergy. So that was my strategy. And I'll tell you, it wasn't as simple as going to pick up a toothpaste from the supermarket. Because of the nature of how I am, I think I went through, my first used to be an engineer, then I had a former pilot in the Air Force, then I had a lawyer, then I think a QS, but the first thing was to look for a member of the clergy who I was on the same level with. Okay, that's the first thing I did. Then after that, it was to have a very honest conversation about what to me my spiritual journey around my Catholic faith means. So every year I go for a retreat where I take a vow of silence for 3 or 4 days. No speaking. I sit and it's prayer and reflection and I read. And we don't talk from Thursday until Sunday. I send a message or two to my wife, but that's it. My family know where I am. If there's an emergency, they know how to reach it. So that's part of my spiritual fitness, and it recharges me. So whatever it is that's going on around in the world, I don't deal with that. So that's one of the things that I took on around spiritual fitness, a yearly retreat. Second one, for those who understand the Catholic faith, was Mass on Sunday. Then there's, so I subscribed to daily newsletters in terms of the intellectual appreciation of scripture. And then once a month, there's the practice within the Catholic faith of going for confession. And then I think that is really what I took on. And so you remember I said there are things that we agreed on weekly, every month, daily, every 6 months, and every year. So that is really what I took on around my spiritual fitness to cope with the pressure of coaching at the elite level.
All right, thank you. That sounds quite intense. Don't think many of us would go that level. What about meditation? People talk about meditation quite often.
My meditation is daily because part of the daily work I was given with scripture is after every reading of scripture every day, I must sit and reflect in silence for at least 10 to 15 minutes. That's part of meditation. And then Alejandro gave me some breathing work. So I breathe before my spiritual daily focus. I do the reading, and then on the reflection, I breathe again. Yeah, have you seen a lot of teams nowadays taking deep breaths, big deep breaths, and then out before maybe they get on the field or even at halftime? So that's what I've also adopted around when I'm starting my spiritual recharge. So meditation, yes, that is definitely there on a daily basis because it does help.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, any concern for Mr. Paul? Questions, clarifications, or anything that you'd want to learn from him? Anyone who would want to seek for any clarification or a question? Paul, everyone is quiet. It seems they are happy.
Well, maybe I was just talking rubbish.
No, you mentioned quite a lot of, important things.
A lot of it needs thinking, and I think everyone just to reflect and just look at. Because a lot of things I was talking about are not technical things. A lot of it.
Yeah, and it's something that is new to many. See, like you talked about planning, the sharing the load. Some people, most people are not good at sharing that load. Everyone, if they're the head coach, they want to be the person that has the last word on everything.
Well, I do. In that sharing the load, the last word is mine. However, it's mine based on everyone saying their bit. It's very tiring. Well, I'll tell you for free. It is because you can imagine. Let me give you an example of we want to drop a player, isn't it? So, or selection for a big game. The first people to speak will be the medics. So Ondiege and Mancone would be the people to first give the input. And then you'd find then one of the skills coaches, the scrum coach says, no, but you strap that knee because no one can jump in the line out like that particular player. And then the medics would say, no, but he's not able to do ABCD. Then the conditioning coach would come in and say, actually, if I just make him do 2 or 3 squats and then activate some of those muscles and then we strap it properly and maybe it's some painkillers, which is not very good in terms of player welfare, he can play. So you see, after all that Ogola, then heads turn to the head coach. And then mine is to always making a final decision, but making everyone feel respected, which is not always the case. So as exhausting as it is, but it built a lot of synergy and ownership within the team. But that way, responsibility is spread out and there's ownership. But where you as a head coach just say, I have said, and this is how it's going to happen, you then find what your management team will do. They say, okay, simwache tu huyu, si anajua, watch the head coach. And then that's when you start finding leaks, information leaking to people who are outside the team or the organization. You start finding rifts amongst the players because since your coaches are not happy with their involvement, they themselves are going to have factions with it. So you find a serious knock-on effect when you, as the coach, are the one who wants to do it alone. I actually got inspired by Alex Ferguson because I read when he started coaching, was it in 1992? Was it early 90s? I think there were 3 or 4 coaches. He's the one who do the cones, he's the one who set up flags, he's the one who set up drills and what they were doing. And when was he still being successful? I think he did 70, if I'm not wrong. And there's no way a 70-year-old is the one picking up cones and running around with bags. But you can imagine how he was able to spread the load and to delegate a lot of that work to people younger than himself, and still maintain the quality of the team as a manager. So those are some of the things that I've really admired and borrowed from.
So Paul, mostly you've talked about yourself. What about athletes? How do you help athletes cope with pressure? Like, for example, a bad call that might trigger someone to mess up the whole team?
Wow, now we've gone into player coping with pressure. That is a very good question you've asked, and that is something we didn't have much of until 2019, 2020, I'd say. But 2020, let's put it that way. One of the things that we've been trying to get players to understand is what they call red zone and blue zone. I don't know if I can find some of that material. So red, blue zone is you want the players to always stay in the blue. Okay, so in the blue means that you are in that place where you're always able to make decisions. So if you've gone and missed a tackle, or if you've gone and made a mistake and you've got a yellow card, and because of that yellow card, you've conceded a try, and that try, or suddenly we are under pressure. Red zone is what you see in a lot of teams. So even tomorrow, if you're going to watch some of the matches, whether it's the English Premier League, you can always tell when players have gone into red zone, where they're throwing their hands in the air, stamping their feet, cursing. And who's the first person they go for when they're in the red zone? That is the referee. Okay. Waste of energy, and they've gone to point fingers at an external force which they're not in control of. So what we tell players is to focus on being in the blue zone. First, to know themselves inwardly. So if you watched the New Zealand All Blacks play, their last captain, not this current one, he was called Kieran Reid. Kieran Reid, every so often in a match, you would see him looking up, like he's looking up in the stands. Okay, so that was his tool that he had been taught on when he's gone into red zone for him to come back into blue zone. And each player is given a different tool. So whether you've made a mistake, or you're tired, or the referee has made a call that you're not happy about, how do you stay in the blue? And you've seen the best teams, even when the referee calls perhaps marginal, not going their way, they still stay in the blue, being able to make decisions. Richie McCaw, probably the greatest ever captain in rugby history. If you watch any mistake, he used to stamp. If you saw him, he used to stamp his foot. He used to start stamping his foot on the ground. That was the tool he was given, that he's gone into red zone where now he's not being able to think clearly, and then he's being able to come back into blue zone. So that is one of the best tools that we'll be looking to give our players on the field stay in red and blue zone. I was trying to see if I have it somewhere close by as well. In terms of yeah. Yes. Yeah, so that's just one of the tools, but one of the most important tools that we've been giving players in terms of how they stay in red zone. Remember, at red zone, the contributions for red zone can be many things. It can be you're tired. It can be your teammate has said something that you really don't like. Your captain has shouted at you. Whether a young player, when we were playing the final against Namibia in France, the scores were still, I think it was only 17 to 13 points. And he wanted to come off because I think one of the senior players had told him something and he immediately went into red zone. So it's little things like that that take players from blue into red zone.
Yeah, you mentioned about sacking. Quite
Yes.
often coaches are sacked when
Yes.
they lose a match, either because you've been losing a lot, or as you mentioned, you are not with the board. And you talked about being your values like 100% with them or 100% with you. And I don't think there's such an ideal scenario where you would find you are on 100% on either side.
But this is before you join any place. This is before you join.
All right.
Yeah. During the, it's like a workplace. There's no way. Is there any way we're all at 100% with each other? But before you join, I was saying it's before you go and join an organization. I think it's very important that both parties want each other. And that's what I was alluding to.
Okay.
I was trying to find that map that we have for mental whatever for players. I need some. Yeah. That's the problem of having too many things.
As you try to get that document,
Yeah.
So the last part of my question is, we've talked about you as a coach, you talked of the athletes while in the field.
Yeah.
But anything on before the match, especially when it's like, you know, a tiebreaker or something, you know, the crucial match that would like, you know, determine your fate, being with the team or being kicked out of the team. Because I know that also matters. It depends on you as a coach, what you say, how you behave, you know, and how you approach the match. So for you to be able to like have a clear understanding between you and the athletes in terms of handling that pressure, is there any particular approach you take just to ensure that the athletes are well, I mean, are ready and capable of handling the pressure that is before them?
One of the things, I think that's a very good question you've asked. One of the things we found that when there's pressure and we've not actually had very clear guidelines on what is expected, I'd find myself, you see now rugby coaches sit very far. I'd find myself screaming into the walkie-talkie, but what I'm screaming actually doesn't make sense. And that was when I started coaching initially. Yeah, it was interesting that we then designed what we'd call a TIC. So the TIC would be to try as much as possible to move away from the emotions of the game and stick to the technical bits of the game. So I'll be able to share a TIC with you, just so you have a look at what we'd show the players, so that when now we're in the high pressure and the cauldron of the game, instructions of what's being shouted or what we're telling the players are consistent with what we've practiced and what we've planned. So we even put certain keywords that we expected to tell the players. So these keywords then help that even when we're under pressure and we're getting upset, the players can quickly react to those words when working. Okay, yeah. Let me share this. This was before we played Algeria in the semi-final of the World Cup qualifier, and it was a tight game. I think we won by, wow, it was a game that was pressure was that only 2 points. And if you watch that game, I think we were on our try line, and Algeria a very good team, and they were putting us under immense pressure. But the reason we're able to keep the players focused and to keep everyone focused was because of the TIC that we had planned, the technical report before, and removing the emotion as much as possible from the players. So let me share this just to show you. Gola, can you see it? Faster, fitter, lower.
Yes, faster, fitter, lower, right.
So this one, it's a one-pager. This is sent. This we would send to the players the day before. So you see this. So these are the instructions that I'd keep shouting, depending on whatever it is that's happening in the game. So for example, we're now in those last few minutes when we're defending, we would all shout, line speed or double tackle, 2 tackle, fall, realign. So you see, we're sticking to specific small components that are devoid of emotion. So I'm not screaming at them, work harder, skuma, and what have you. But it's very specific and clear instruction. So Gola, that is one of the strategies we've used when preparing players for big games to be able to stick to that task. So you see, after the game, this is also something that helps in terms of review. And it's always quite a tough area for coaches at elite level, and being able to handle that and being able to just cope with the pressure of all these different bits from players, press, and the board, fans. I think when we lost to Senegal for the first time ever, someone decided to abuse my mother on Facebook. What my mother had to do with us losing to Senegal, I don't know. But that is the nature of fans. So,
quite unfortunate. Before or after?
After we'd lost, so when we lost, in fact, people said I should be sacked immediately. And if you watch that game, it was a crucial refereeing error, with a few minutes to go. Although in all fairness, if we had played a bit better, we would not have had to leave it. CIC's technical report. So we'd had to. If we played a bit better in that game, we would not have left it to an individual error to be done. So yes, but again, at elite level, right? You are one referee. A referee will give a penalty in a game, and then what do you do? And it's cost you your job. You're one tackle, one penalty from losing a game, or a red card, or a yellow card. So that's a reality, but you can't control those things at that time. Unfortunately, that is the reality of coaching at elite level. You have to bear that. That's why I was telling you to enjoy it. Because and do it your way with your values, so that at some point things will come to a head, you yourself will just look back and see what you built. So, yes.
All right. Somebody wanted to say something? My friend from Germany.
Yeah, I was following with high interest and listened to what he had to say. So yeah, I have some of this experience too. And from my point of view, I can add maybe something. As I experienced in my coaching life, pressure comes from expectations of your environment, expectations coming from your athletes. You are the coach. We want to win. Now, coach, do something, we will win. And expectations from sponsors, expectations from your club board, and the higher level you are coaching, like you in the national team, the National Olympic Committee has expectations on you to win, to make your team win. And you as a coach have expectations on yourself, what your goals are, how you reach your goals and how fast you reach them and in which way you reach them. And you get criticized and you have rivals, competition, maybe. I mean, in your position, as I could understand, there are not very many coaches around you applying for maybe the same position you are in now. But I experience here in Germany as a rowing coach, we have many rowing clubs and many coaches, and there's always a competition on every regatta, every race we are going. How many wins can he get and how many teams, and how do they win? Is there a distance between the boats, or is it close? How is the technique? So to shortcut it, pressure comes from expectations, and of course, like in a game sport, during a game, on your athletes and how the game is developing, you are winning or you're losing, are you obviously losing, or is it getting close? And of course, how you treat, how you deal with that as a coach depends on also concerning your team, how good you know your team, because some needs like to say it, some needs a kick in the ass, yeah, and some needs to be calmed down, yeah. So some have their own pressure, their own expectation. We have to win this time, and I have to perform very good this time. So coach will know my abilities, and for the next game I'm already booked. And so they're overturning. Yeah? So they're, like you told us, performing in the red zone, always close to craziness. Yeah. And so you have to talk to them to take the pressure, the expectation away, just by saying what I say when I recognize, wow, this team is really under high pressure and they are overexcited. Excitement is good. They need to be excited. They have to have this adrenaline level to perform really good. But if it's too high, they may make mistakes very easily. So what I tell them is, hey, it's like in training, you know, it's like training, but there are some other boats. So just perform like in training. Don't do less, but don't do more. Just go for training, and when you see you can win, okay, take it. Yeah, and others need, like I said, the kick in the ass, so that they can go in the red zone and get the high performance. So yeah, for me, I like to add, pressure is made of expectations from yourself and from the environment and from the team, of course.
Any more questions or any more clarifications that you want to get from Paul? I'll just want to take this opportunity to thank you for attending, making time for this. We do this quite oftenly, try to cross-skill, upskill, just share amongst coaches on how best we can assist each other. Otherwise, Paul, thank you so much for creating and making time for this. And we look forward to having you again in the future. Wish to bring this meeting to an end if there's not any burning issue at hand. And before I do that, Paul, if you want to say a word or so before we can end the meeting.
I just thank everyone for giving up Friday afternoon or Friday mid-morning if it's in Europe to listen, and I thank you for, I've really picked something up about the swimming and the regatta, because I always like borrowing and stealing a few things from other sports. But thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And guys, have a good evening. Have a good day, wherever you are. And hope to see you again in the future. Thanks.